They thought I was nuts. They thought I was absolutely crazy. My wife back here, when she came to visit my school, she didn't know where my room was. She didn't have to worry. She walked in the front door and stopped. It's down there. She found my room right away. She could attest to that. Did a couple different schools. Just one school. She did a couple different times. So anyway, this is the way it goes. High school kids are going nuts by now. They're going, the worst thing to be a high school teacher in Fayette County High School was having a class that followed Lewin. Because the kids were out of control. They were just out of control. All right. Second, basic principle. Not all of these are as thorough. We're not as thorough in all of these principles, but they're all there. Representative government. Government's function. The function of government is to represent the people. That's pretty simple. I can't give you a whole lot. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that one, because they do. Drew Ferguson works for us. Donald Trump works for us. Donald Trump doesn't work for himself. Right. And if you think that Donald Trump works for Walmart, then you've abdicated your responsibility as a citizen. And Bernie proved that. It's not money that elects people, it's votes that elect people. You can win in any gerrymandered district in this country. Progressives can win if they have the numbers. 80% voter turnout, I can guarantee we can elect any progressive anywhere in this country with 80% voter turnout. Now, what's our voter turnout? It depends. 22, 23, 25, 35%. If we have 50% voter turnout for a president, that means that the president is elected by 25% of the eligible voters in this country. It doesn't take half of the people. It only takes 30%. Think about that a little bit, because the numbers are there. But it requires work. It requires citizens sitting down in rooms like this, listening to some crazy government teacher tell them that they have the power. And they've got the power. You've got the power. Okay. All right. Third basic principle. Limited government. I'll throw a little curveball at you on this one. Limited government. Okay, limited government means the government can't do everything. Limited government means government can only do certain things. Is that the same? Ooh, see, that one you have to ponder a little bit, right? You have to think. I'm going to do that for you. I wish I had a whiteboard. I used to write that on the corner of my board the very first day in government class. I used to go up there with a piece of chalk. I used to write T, A, what you think about government, I used to tell them, is less important to me than you thinking about it. You see, that's it. Now think for a second. I gave you two statements here. Government can't do everything. Government can only do certain things. That's not the same, you see. One says, okay, well, government can't do everything we want to do. I understand that. But then another group of people said, no, wait, now government can only do, and you can find these in the Constitution if you look. They're in there. We have two whole sections. Article 1, Section 8 is the powers of the legislature. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 through 13. There you go. I don't know. It's 1 through 13, but then you don't have a Constitution, you can't look them up right now. 1 through 13, list of powers.
Many of them do.
Oh, where's my, I gotta have an attaboy sticker. What do they call them? A Bravo. Anybody know what a Bravo is? She needs a Bravo. She's got her cut. There it is right there. Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 13, I believe. Powers of government. This is what government can do. Legislature, Congress shall make all, Congress shall coin and is it money? There's one about money. There's 14 of them? 17 of them? Article 1, Section 8, all but the last clause. They're not numbered in there?
Not numbered.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, there's one at the end we'll talk about later on. But they're there, the powers of government. Public government can do this. This is what government can do. Then there's Article 1, Section 9 that says these are the things government can't do. Ooh, nice, huh? Government can do this, government can't do this. There it is, laid out for you. And then they throw in that pesky 10th Amendment, which we'll talk about that. All right. See its interpretation now. What do you think it means? What do you think it means? Does it mean government can do everything but these things? Or does it mean government can do everything? That's limited government. See, they wrote that in there. There's things in there that limit the powers of government. It tells you what government can do and what they can't do. All right? Government shall pass all laws that shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution foregoing powers. Ooh. You've heard this one, the elastic clause. Anybody ever heard the term the elastic clause? Let me show your hand. Okay.
I've heard of it. I don't know.
You got it. Bravo, there's a Bravo sticker right there. Okay? Government shall make all laws that shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. Now, the foregoing powers are 1 through 17 or 1 through 14, I forget. Congress shall have the power to coin money, comes to collect taxes. Congress shall promote the progress of science. That's suitably nebulous, isn't it? And then Congress shall have make all laws shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers. So the government can do whatever it needs to do to carry these powers into fruition, into making them happen. Okay? Now, that's a pretty green light for government. And if you know anything about the elastic clause, it's called the elastic clause. Why? Because you can stretch the powers of government to cover just about anything. Just about anything. Now, whose job is it to make sure the government doesn't go too far? The people! Boom! I'm getting worked up. Okay. You might figure out I'm a little passionate about government. Maybe you got that. Maybe you got just a hint.
Should have been in our house.
All right. My son was the smartest government student I ever taught. I had him in AP government only because I was the only AP government teacher around. So he had to take AP government from Dad. The only B, this is one she will never forgive me for, the only B my son ever received in high school, he received in AP government. He got from me. All right, now, that was number 3, right? Number 3. Number 4. This is where it gets really neat. Separation of powers. The separation of powers. Okay? Now, what we didn't want is we didn't want the king or the president or his orangeness or whatever you want, however you want to call it, You don't want all the power to settle in one place, right? I'll give you an example of that. The IRS. I don't care if whether you're for the Internal Revenue Service or against it. It makes no difference to me. The thing I don't like about the Internal Revenue Service is they make the rules, they enforce the rules. If you have a question on them, they interpret the rules. Now, I'll give you a hint. That's not separation of powers. Okay, that's putting all the power in one place. Okay? And they know that. They knew that. These guys, founding fathers, FF, with capital F's. Whenever you write founding fathers, you write it with capital F, because these are the guys who made our government. And it's a beautiful government. I told you that before. It's a wonderful government. Okay? They knew this. They saw that this was a possibility or a problem. So, they broke it up. They broke up the powers. They broke it up in a number of different ways. First of all, they created 3 branches. The legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Okay? The legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch enforces the laws. And the judicial branch interprets the laws and settles disputes under the law. Okay? That's the separation of powers. I'll have to tell you my Mac Collins story sometime. Anybody here know who Mac Collins was? Who was he? He was our representative before Westmoreland. Maybe there was another one. There was a red in there. He was before Mac Collins. Mac Collins came to Fayette County High School one time and wanted to teach my students government. We were talking about the separation of powers, and he, I can do this. Can I do this? There was a story there. It was pretty amazing. And at one point, the entire class, in unison, turned around. They were all sitting there looking at Mac, and he turned around and went at me. And I went, what could I say? I'm just a lowly government teacher. He's a representative congressman in the United States. Different branches, different powers, right? That's one way they separate it. The second way they separate them is terms of office. They're not all in there for the same amount of time. All right? Representatives are in there for 2 years. Presidents are in there for 4 years. Senators are in there for 6 years. Judges are in there for life. For life? Anyway, they're in there for life. Okay? I'll give you a hint about that, all that in a little bit. But that way, House of Representatives is guaranteed to look at stuff in the short term. Why? They're only in there for 2 years. Mac Collins, I have Mac Collins on the brain now. Drew Ferguson's already going around and said, we only got a year and a half. I said, you only got a year and a half? You're talking about term limits? Why do you only have a year and a half? Well, because you're going to vote you out, you idiot. Okay, we're going to vote you out in a year and a half. Boy, wouldn't that be an uprising?
Yes.
I'm all for, there used to be a group called THRO, T-H-R-O, throw hypocritical rascals out. Now they changed it to a whole new Congress, I think is what they call it now. Some of you might be familiar with this. All you internet mavens might know now about, there's a whole group out there to throw the whole Congress out, overturn the entire Congress.
Brand new Congress.
We can do that. We can. Why? Because they're only in there for 2 years. If we don't want the guy we have, Ferguson or Sanford Bishop or David Scott or whoever, John Lewis, I don't know, whether you like him or not, it doesn't matter. But we can turn him over. And I'll tell you something else. They ask American people what kind of a job is Congress doing. 80% of the people in this country will say, they're doing a terrible job. And then you ask, well, how about your congressman? Oh, he's great. I kid you not. Those studies exist.
They don't even know who their congressman
It's everybody else's congressman that's doing a bad job. Our guy's okay. Okay. All right, so they're in there. They're in there for different terms of office. Presidents, they've got a 4-year term. I'm personally in favor of a 6-year term for presidents, non-reelectable consecutively. Okay, we'll vote him out. He's in there for 6 years. He's in there for 6 years. He's out. Now, if he's any good, we can vote him back in 6 years from now. But he can't serve consecutively. That's my own little thing. I got little tweaks I can put on the Constitution too. I can fix it. but F guys, they didn't have it all together. I got it all together. And then you got the senators. They're there for 6 years. They're looking longer term. Okay? See, they're looking for longer range solutions because they've got a little bit longer to think about. That sounds good now, but a couple of years. Now, there's a couple assumptions here. You're all in the back of your mind going, this guy's talking theory. He's not talking like what's actually going on out there. Okay? I know what's actually going on out there. I don't know how to fix it. All right. Well, I do know how to fix it. How? Boom. Thank you. See, I keep coming back to that, folks. I keep coming back to that. And it's not just us in this room. We got to go out and we got to talk to our neighbors, who you might not want to talk about, but that's this weekend. We do that, how to talk to your neighbors. We got to tell them that, this is our government. It's not those guys in Washington, those guys in Atlanta, those guys at City Hall. It's not those guys. It's us. If we don't like what's going on and they're not doing what we want them to do, it's our responsibility to get them out. All right? I didn't for 1 minute think that Hillary would be a better president than Donald Trump. Not for a second.
I did.
I'm here. No. I don't know. That's uncharted territory. Okay, we knew what this was going to be. We didn't know what that was going to be, and I have my own ideas about where that was going. But anyway, we'll stay off of that. That's politics. I'm the theory guy. I'm not the political guy. I'm the theory guy. Political guy has two surgery more. All right. Now, see, I got different terms of office, different powers. Revelation. They represent different people. If we don't like Doug Collins as a representative, can we vote him out? No, we can't. Why not? He's not in our district. How many people here have done any work for John Ossoff? Let me see a show of hands. There you go. There's some people there. That's great. Can you vote him out or can you vote him in? No, you can't. All you can do is hope that those people you get in touch with vote him in. So they represent different people. Now, I'll give you a little hint about Drew Ferguson. Okay? Drew Ferguson brought the Kia plant to West Georgia. And he brought all the sundry and satellite support industries to West Georgia. You know what that meant?
Toads.
Well, indirectly, it meant jobs. And that meant votes. Okay? And I'll give you an example, a clear-cut example of that. It used to be the B-1 bomber, the one that cost $10 billion. It was supposed to be better than the B-52. It was, it was stealthy. Okay, it was smaller than the B-52, didn't carry as much ordnance as the B-52, didn't have the range of the B-52. But by God, it was stealthy. Well, it turned out it wasn't stealthy. Now, well, at $10 billion each, we shouldn't do any more of those things. Well, that's right, we probably shouldn't. But Newt Gingrich happened to have in his district Lockheed. And no representative in his right mind is going to vote to cut funding to a program that brings 40,000 jobs to his district. Think. This is what we have to, this is what now, there's all kinds of reasons they say, well, it's a military-industrial complex and Eisenhower warned us about that. Whole Vietnam War was fought, yeah, I got all that. But we as American people let it get out of hand because we like jobs, we like to work, we like food on the table, we like to take care of our kids, we like to make a good living doing it. There are no easy solutions. I don't want to kid you into thinking that I'm up here ranting and raving about how great government is. But folks, it comes down to jobs. Do you want a job? Well, then, you're going to vote for the guy that's going to bring you jobs. Different constituencies. Now, Drew Ferguson represents his district. There's 435 representatives in this country, 435 districts. Each one represents ostensibly the same number of people with the exception of Wyoming, Delaware, Montana, Alaska. Those states where nobody lives, or not very many people live. And they get one representative anyway. Each state gets at least one representative. And we can run through reapportionment and tell you how they divide that up. And the formula they use, and they subtract the number of states with less than this number of people. It's very complicated, but you can do it. All right? Senators represent questions. Do I have a question? Oh, somebody was pointing and going, what was I, did I miss something? That happens a lot of times. I get rolling real good and I miss things.
Yeah, we're pointing at the clock. I said, yeah, yes, we're actually pointing at the clock.
You what?
We were pointing at the clock.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
We got 7:30, right? It's our deadline? Okay, good. We're good.
Okay.
Don't run us out of here.
Donald Trump's great power is that he's the only man in our government elected by the people. He's the only person in our government who's elected by everybody. Every state votes for him. Senators, states vote for them. Senators, states vote for them. We can't elect, I can't think of a senator now. Orrin Hatch, is he still around?
Yes.
Okay, we can't vote him around because he represents Utah. All right. So, but that's the same thing with representatives on a state scale. All right. The senators represent their states, and Purdue and Ferguson, Purdue and Isaacson, they're gonna do what's best for the port of Savannah. Yeah, because that's ours. It's also part of South Carolina, but it's ours, and so they're gonna do what's good for us. Okay. Different powers, they do different things, they have different constituencies. And then you got that pesky checks and balances. This is still under separation of powers. You got a checks and balances. In order for anything to get done in this country, under the Constitution as designed by the FF guys, the only way that's going to work is if all three branches agree. Okay? And you know that because you've been calling about AHCA and the ACA. You've been calling about that. You're making those phone calls to Ferguson and to Bishop, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. And now all of a sudden we got to call Isaacson and what's that guy's name? Purdue, we got to call those guys? Why do we have to call them? I thought we killed this thing. Well, we killed it in one house. We didn't necessarily kill it in the other house. Okay, now, at some point in time, these two houses are going to have to get together and come up with something they can all vote on that they can agree on. Okay, and then it goes to the president. And then the president's got to sign it. Well, he doesn't have to sign it, he can veto it, in which case he comes back and it goes back and forth. And I don't want to spend any time with the enactment process, because the enactment process is another 45 minutes to an hour just by itself. Okay, so we don't want to go there. But it's the separation of powers and ultimately the Supreme Court now. And the danger of what we've got today, and you all are knowing this, is why you're here. The danger we have today is that all three branches are controlled by one political party. And theoretically, in theory, I'm a theory guy, the House of Representatives could get together tomorrow and say, well, you know, we're going to outlaw the Democratic Party. Well, they can't do that. Yes, they can. They can do that. They can pass that, they can pass the Senate, and Trump can sign it, and go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, yeah, that's legal. Boom. There you go. Hostilities to Democrats. It's as simple as that. And you need to keep that thing in the back of your mind. I've got to resist on the back of my car. And I have resist on the back of my truck. And I'm trying real hard to get my wife to put resist on the back of her car. Which hadn't done it yet because she likes having a job. Okay, we talked about earlier. So, you know, keep that in mind, folks, because at some point in time, this goes back to what my father had put up with in 1939 in Germany. He saw Kristallnacht, he saw the burning of the Reichstag, he saw all that, and told stories about that. And there may be a time that we're going to have to go to the streets. So we've got to keep that in the back of your mind. We've got the power. We've got popular sovereignty. We have the power to vote. We can go into the voting booths right now. Nobody's telling us that we can't vote for somebody right now. And so we better protect that. We better fight to protect that. Because that could disappear. It could disappear in a second. And they're working on it. They're fighting real hard on it. Okay? Picture IDs to vote, and whether you're for that or against that, I don't, you know, I don't have a dog in that hunt. Okay? I'd like on-site voter registration day up. You just show up and vote. Where do you live? Well, I live over here. Okay, good. We'll go vote. All right. Chase it down. Fifth, I told you, see, I was going to stay on task. You didn't think I was, because I wander all over the place. Fifth basic principle. Federalism. The key thing to understanding about American government is federalism, because it's the thing that separates our government from all other governments everywhere. We were the first ones to come up with this. Now, federalism, anybody know what federalism is? Let me tell you. It's the division of power between states and national government. Don't give me local government. There is no constitutional guarantee of local government. All right? We'll talk about that maybe later on, maybe at another meeting later on. Okay? See, I'm giving you all these things. You know, I'd like to know about that. You know. He's around. If you say, I would really like to hear more about this, or I'd really like to hear more about that. You want to write down there. You can title this, boy, I wish I paid attention in civics class when they talked about. Okay? So pass those cards around and put on there what you want to talk about. And the next one we'll try to do that. Federalism. Division of power between state and national government. Okay, you are under control of two different governments. You're under control of state government and you're under control of national government. They don't always see eye to eye. Think Civil War. Because that's what that was about. And I know it was about slavery. It was about slavery, but actually it was about, did Georgia have slaves?
States' rights.
Who said so? Does the national government tell us we can have them or not have them? Or is that a state power? It doesn't mention it in the Constitution anywhere whose power that is. Ooh, remember those powers of government? We talked about those. Well, there are a bunch of things they left out. Now, if they left them out, who does that belong to? That power. Does it belong to the state or does it belong to the national government?
All of them is not specifically.
Ooh, see? There you go. Can the national government tell Georgia they can't have slaves? Well, we proved it. Yeah, we proved it. We proved it over the years, yes. And we came up with the 14th Amendment, which did away with all that. Which changed the Constitution. The 14th Amendment changed the whole relationship of the states to the national government. And there's a whole class right there, the 14th Amendment. We can talk about that further. They teach courses in college on the 14th Amendment. On one amendment of the Constitution, they teach all kinds of classes. Okay. So, the 10th Amendment, the amendments, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. We haven't talked about the amendments of the Constitution. We hadn't talked about the amendments of the Constitution. Amendments are changes to the Constitution. The first 10 amendments are called Bill of Rights. Exactly right. And they were put in there because when the guys wrote the Constitution, the F guys, there's a couple things that the Declaration of Independence guys didn't like. Okay? There were a couple things they let out, they left off. And so they came up with the Bill of Rights. Okay, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, peaceably assemble, right to keep a well-regulated militia being necessary for the assurance of a free state of well-regulated right to the citizens to keep their arms not be infringed. There's a couple more. There's 10 of them. Actually, there's only 9 of them. Okay, there's 9 Bill of Rights. And they're listed there, trial rights, right to confront your accuser. There's things they let out. Things that the British could do that they didn't think that our government ought to be able to do. Which is probably true. It is probably right. And they said, well, nobody would do that. Well, okay, well, we're going to make sure that they don't. We're going to put them in there in the Bill of Rights. And then they wrote that pesky 10th Amendment. The pesky 10th Amendment says, all powers not delegated to the United States by this Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. This is called the Reserved Powers Amendment. They listed in the Constitution, this is what the national government can do, this is what the national government can't do, this is what state governments can do, this is what state governments can't do. They laid federalism out very clearly for people. But they left out things like education. Well, that belongs to the states. See you later, Department of Education. Oops. How Trumpian of me. I'm sorry. Sorry. I apologize. I know I'm going to save audience. I can say that here. You know, I go outside the door and say that in the garden. I don't know about you. Okay? Education is one of those things they left out. Now, I used to tell students this in class. I said, you know, I'm going to run for governor, and I can pretty much guarantee that I can be elected governor in Georgia. I said, I'm going to guarantee every taxpayer in Georgia a check within 6 months of being elected. I'm going to give them a check for $800. Now, you don't think I get elected? Well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'll tell you exactly how I'm going to do that. There's 3 big ticket items in the Georgia budget. Prisons, roads, and education. Well, we're just going to do away with public schools. We're going to do away with education in Georgia. We're going to give every taxpayer in Georgia $800. It just went up, didn't it? From 600 to 800. Okay, I don't care, 1,000. We'll give them $1,000. Well, they'd never stand for that. The voters in Georgia would never stand for that. Do you want to put that on the ballot somewhere? Do you want to put it on the ballot somewhere and have the people in Georgia vote for that? You see? You understand what I'm getting at, right? Now, well, the national government, wrong answer. Why? Not the national government's power, it's the state power. Now, well, the national government would never allow that to happen. Yes, you're probably right. The state government and the national government would not allow that to happen. So the national government would come in and tromp all over states' rights. You see what I'm getting at? You understand this? I'm trying to get this across to you. I have my own beliefs about this. Right? Question.
Isn't that what Sessions is trying to do right now with the marijuana laws across the country?
Maybe. Okay, and the reason I say maybe is there's something in those powers of the legislature that talk about health and safety. The national government has, and it may be in the preamble, we the people, in order to form one perfect unit, promote the general welfare, ensure domestic tranquility, and there's another one in there. Okay. See, so I think there's something in it. You understand? So, yeah, promote the general welfare, yeah. Something like that. You see, because you got that flexible, elastic clause in there, and we've already proven that the national government can trump all over states' rights. We did that with the Civil War. We solved that problem. Rightfully so. Don't get me wrong. You know, you're going, a lot of you are thinking, what does this guy really believe about government? He's given us all sorts of different views. Well, that's the point, you see. This is stuff to think about. This is all of these things that are tied up in what our Constitution says. This is what the Constitution says. These are the basic principles of the Constitution. They're in there. Okay? They wrote them. I'll give you a book. Those of you, you're all in here, so you're readers. I know that right away, right? Because you're thinking people to begin with, so you're already in a minority. So you're readers. There's a book out there called "The Federalist Papers in Modern Language." Unbelievable book. Mary Webster. Mary E. Webster. She knew. They wanted to know. They wanted to know. Mary E. Webster is her name. It's the Federalist Papers in Modern Language. The hard thing about anybody know what the Federalist Papers were?
The sales job.
They were sales jobs. Exactly right. They were a sales job. They were written by they were written by the demonic genius behind the Constitution, Alexander Hamilton, Madison, and John Jay. I think it was John Jay wrote one, Madison and Hamilton wrote all the rest of them. Okay? They were 55, 58, 62, 71, I don't remember the number, of essays written to convince people why we should have a new government. The Federalist Papers. And if you ever have a question about why our government was designed the way it was designed. This will answer, because these are primary source materials. Those of you that know anything about historical research at all, primary source material is stuff from the absolute time that something happened. Primary source, either from the people who did it or people who knew the people who did it. Okay, primary source material. And what Mary E. Webster has done is she's taken that lousy 18th century prose. I had to read the Federalist Papers in 18th century language, and you talk, hold a gun to my head, or a slingshot, or whatever, beat me over the head with an axe handle or something, make me do it, make me read this because it was awful. I couldn't understand a word of it. Well, Mary E. Webster has taken it and she has translated it into modern language. And it makes a world of difference. You can actually understand what the guys who wrote the Constitution, the Federalists, they ended up being Federalists, the founding fathers, what they thought about why we have the government we have, why we don't have an Articles of Confederation, why we have the government we have, and why do congressmen only have 2 terms? Why do congressmen have 2 years and senators have 6? Okay, so there's all sorts of things like that in there, and they'll give you the answer. The first 15 Federalist Papers talk about why we don't have a monarch. I just read them recently again because I knew this was coming up, and I thought I'd prepare myself just for a figure. All right, I've been retired from teaching for about 10 years, so I had a refresher course. I had to go back to school. And I read, so I read them over again. And the first maybe 15 or 16 Federalist Papers talk about why we don't have a government like they have in Europe or in Denmark, or they mentioned a couple of different countries over there. And then they talk about why we don't have an Articles of Confederation, what was wrong with them, and why this system is better than that system. It's a sales pitch. Exactly right. It is a sales pitch for the Constitution, but it's written by the guys who wrote the Constitution. So this is primary source stuff. So it's really pretty fascinating reading in the modern language. You can read the 18th century prose if you want, but sorry, my throat just got dry. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could talk about judicial supremacy. Maybe a 6th one if you want. We're going to skip over that one. Final words here. Just final words. Right. Ultimately, it comes down to voting. That's what I told you about before. We mentioned it a bunch of times in here. Voting, voting, voting. Okay? And voter suppression. This is the fight that we have to fight. All these other ones we would like to fight. We'd like having national parks, right? I have a national park sticker on the back of my car from the alternate national park. I have on my guitar case that said, I will not be suppressed, all right? Nobody's going to shut me up because I'm not going to let it happen. My father would roll over in his grave if I did, all right? And progressive without apology. I have that on my guitar case too, all right? And that's what I believe. But all those things, all these things that we talk about, all these issues, they pay off if we lose our right to go to the polls and elect our own representatives. And we are that close right now. This whole Russia thing that everybody says, well, that's a distraction. No, it's not a distraction. It is not a distraction. And I will tell Drew Ferguson this, and I will tell Greg Panzer and Drew Ferguson's offices, and I'll tell James, whatever his name is, up in Washington. Yeah.
How do we know that this thing is going to go on tomorrow? Is going to be an election?
Oh, in the Oslo?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. All we have is we don't have any paper trail in it. Okay? And there's, election day, we ought to have election day off, there ought to be a paper trail, and I don't want to hear, well, you know, that's so time consuming. It's not time consuming, it's our vote. It's our system, it's our government. Don't give me expediency. Don't give me, well, you know, it's called. I had this discussion with a guy at the Democratic Party meeting in Fayette County, Georgia. Okay? I don't want to hear cost-benefit analysis on voting. They're going to close, they want to close 10 polling places in Fayette County. Right? Well, I understand all, well, they sit there all day and 5 people show up. They sit there all day and 1 person shows up. I don't want to hear expediency. I don't want to hear cost-benefit analysis. I can talk that talk. I can talk cost-benefit analysis with the best of them. But I don't want to hear that because it's our vote, and you can't put voting up to cost-benefit analysis. It's our vote. It's how we choose our leaders. Okay? We will have election day off. Period. It will be a national holiday. Everybody gets off. And Chick-fil-A is not going to be the only place that's closed. Okay? The other places are closed. Everybody's going to be closed. Oh, we can't vote in schools. It's disruptive. We'll vote in schools. We'll vote in fire halls. We will not vote in churches. Don't get me started on that. We're going to vote in public buildings. We're going to hold votes in public places. And we're going to hold them, and everybody will have a chance to do it. If you want to vote, you'll get to vote. It doesn't matter what time you're in line or anything. You show up. I understand hours, and I'm grateful for early voting. I think early voting is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay? It is. Anytime that you can attract more people to vote, it's the greatest thing that can happen. The more people you get, they might not all vote for my people. They might not all vote for my people. They might all vote for the Orange Menace. I don't care. Well, I do care. But I don't care. It's how we choose our leaders. And that's what we should do. And I'll give you a hint about the Federalist Papers. The Federalists saw this and they believed that Congress was a mosh pit. I'll date myself a little bit more, because that's an old-timey saying, a mosh pit. Okay? Where all these people come in and light and self-interested, you're my representative, you're going to represent me, and you're his representative, you're going to represent him.